Hello, everybody. Welcome to your Watts Weekly Features. Today, we are talking to three editors from ARC Poetry magazine about the value of poetry in modern life and the many opportunities ARC has for poetry lovers. I'm Sienna Tristan, and I'll be your host. Watts Toronto operates on land that is the territory of the Huron-Wendat and Petun First Nations, the Seneca, and the Mississaugas of the New Credit First Nation. This territory is the subject of the Dish with One Spoon Wampum-Built Covenant, an agreement between the Haudenosaunee Confederacy and the Confederacy of the Anishinaabe and Allied Nations to care for and share the resources around the Great Lakes in peace. We encourage you to educate yourself about the land that you live on, wherever you're tuning in from. So we have three guests today, which is a little bit tight, but we're going to make it work. They all have a synergy, so I'm very excited to introduce all of them to you. First up, we have Manahil Bandukwala, who is, the coordinating editor for ARC Poetry magazine. Manahil is a Pakistani writer and artist. Her most recent project, Raif al-Registan, is an exploration of Pakistani folklore interpreted through poetry and sculpture. She is a member of Seven, an Ottawa-based collaborative writing collective. Hey there.
Hello.
Next up, we have the poetry editor for ARC magazine, Sarah Yimei Tsiang. Hello.
Hello.
Sarah is the author of Status Update, which is nominated for the Pat Lowther Award, and the Gerald Lampert Award-winning Sweet Devilry. Her new book, Grappling Hook, is forthcoming with Palimpsest Press. And then last but not least, we have Nancy Jo Cullen. Welcome. Hi. Nancy Jo Cullen's poetry and fiction have appeared in The Puritan, Grain, Filling Station, Plenitude, Prairie Fire, ARC, This Magazine, Best Canadian Poetry 2018, Room, and a multitude of other places. Her first novel, The Western Alienation Merit Badge, was shortlisted for the 2020 Amazon Canada First Novel Award. Her fourth poetry collection, Nothing Will Save Your Life, will be released in spring 2022 from Woolsack and Wynne. She is the prose editor for ARC. I am so happy to have all three of you here with me this afternoon. Thank you for coming. I think we're going to be starting off with a poetry reading actually from the new issue. So I'm excited to cozy in and listen up.
The issue has kind of only just been hitting the mailboxes this week. I haven't even received mine yet. So I'm reading just from the layout I have. And I thought it'd be fun to share Flow State by Ian Martin. You know those puzzle games where the pipes have no end and the water sprays all over and you lose because you couldn't contain everything, because you didn't think hard enough, didn't plug up every hole, and you lose the level over and over until you don't. But that doesn't matter. You're soaked through and everyone hates you, even though it's just one level. And you never tell anyone you play this game because it's shitty. Everything you like is shitty. Until someone writes an article about it, but they get the game wrong. They say the pipes are femme, the failure is queer. No mention of your quick dry cargoes or your perfect pipe spins. But real players never spin perfect, and fake players don't write articles. And you play this game for a year and a half, never knowing when you play it for the last time. And you get a new phone, and there's 100 new pipe games, 100 new pairs of shorts. 100 new articles, bully circling 100 more. And what if there was a set of pipes you could flush it all down, and it would be gone forever, and you would win the level, and you could do that again and again until the level stopped.
Thank you so much. Such a rhythm to it. I'm so I'm entranced.
That's just a teaser for what the issue's gonna bring.
So tell us a little bit more about this issue. This is the Polymorphous per verse issue, and it has a very special theme. Would you mind telling us a little about it?
So this is an issue that features work by trans Two-Spirit and gender nonconforming writers. It's guest edited by Trish Sala and Ali Blythe. And it's just full of really great poetry, translations, essays, and reviews of authored books by trans reviewers, which I think is really awesome.
Yeah, it's an important part of the process, I think, to have as many as possible who have a common experience, especially in translation where things can be unintentionally or intentionally muddled. So that's really neat.
And it has a gorgeous cover with artwork by Sybil Lamb, and there's also a lot of artwork by Sybil in the issue itself, which is all fantastic.
It's an illustrated issue. That's cool. So this has just recently come out. Manahil's given us a little taste, but if you're subscribed to ARC, expect it in your mailbox soon. And if you're not, at the time of this recording, you can get 20% off of a 1-year subscription to ARC Poetry by visiting our website and checking the special buy link there. So that's just for all of our wonderful poetry lovers. So tell me a little bit about the multitude of other things that ARC has got going on right now, because it's not just the issue. There's a whole sort of ecosystem of opportunities and relationships that it forms with the poetry world. I'd love to hear a bit about that.
Just I guess kind of on the note of the issue, we have an issue launch coming up on May 16th, which is a Sunday, and it's at 4 p.m. EST, 1 p.m. BST, so it's like a nice little afternoon launch. And the readers for that haven't been announced on our Facebook event page yet. So if you're tuning in, this is maybe the first place you'll be hearing it. But we're going to get readings from Cameron Awkward-Rich, C.A. Conrad, S.J. Sindhu, River Hilanguri, and Jia-Ching Wilson-Yang. So you can mark your calendars for that, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Anything else that is like non-issue specific, like anything that's a little bit more year-round, or sort of other projects that I know that there's quite a hefty like editorial board, and like there's a lot of people who go into making ARC happen. It's not just you three; it's a whole bunch of people. So what is it that they're sort of governing and helping to make happen?
This Friday, so we just had our shortlist announcement for our Poem of the Year contest. That is fun because I think like the whole editorial board participates in judging that. And this Friday is the last day to vote for Reader's Choice. So you can find the list of the shortlisted poems on the website, and the poems are going to appear in the summer issue. Where the winner and the honorable mention will also be announced. So that's kind of another reason to take up that subscription. And then our fall issue is a themed issue as well, featuring work by Caribbean and Caribbean Canadian writers. And this one is guest edited by Brandon Wind. So yeah, just a lot of really exciting work coming through there.
For sure. Sarah, I heard behind the scenes in our little green room that you have quite an involvement with the contesting as well. Would you like to tell us a little bit about kind of what's going on there and where it's going?
Sure. So we've got a monthly contest that we run called the ARC Award of Awesomeness. $20 to enter, and you get like an amazing little vintage thing that I spend my time obsessively shopping for in flea markets. So they're all hand-picked. And this month, every month there's a new prompt. So our May prompt is what makes you break into blossom. So anything to do with that, you can send a poem in. And of course, we're really, really excited about the Reader's Choice Award because it's so neat to see what the public loves. So if you get a chance, do definitely go and vote for that one.
Please do. Poetry is a public, institution. I'll get back to this later. I have thoughts on this. But yeah, please do, everyone. Go to arcpoetry.ca and navigate to where the Reader's Choice Award is and read the poetry, have a wonderful time with it, and then click your vote. Do it. Mm-hmm. I know in my forays into ARC's, again, kind of literary ecosystem, I know that you also have a poet in residence program. I'd love to hear a bit about that and what it entails and kind of who's filling the slot and all of that stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, you can chat about that if you want.
No, go ahead, Manahil. Sorry.
So I kind of coordinate that. So the Poet in Residence mentorship program is really cool because anyone who submits work to ARC is kind of taken under consideration for it. And it's an opportunity for writers who haven't published a trade book to get feedback from our Poet in Residence, which this year is Jim Johnstone. And so I think you can workshop up to 3 poems with Jim, and I think it's just a really neat way to kind of break down some of like the intimidation barriers that exist with publishing work in a big magazine.
For sure.
You know,
I just remembered actually, Menai Hill, we were both published in Augur. That's where I knew your name from. We're both in the same issue of Augur magazine. I read your video game poem.
thank you.
But yeah, no, for sure. It can be incredibly intimidating to submit to something, and like very opaque as well. Like the process is very mystified a lot of the time for people who are breaking in. So I'm really glad to see all of these sort of mentorship opportunities and spaces where people who are aspiring and emerging can really get that feedback.
Yeah, and the program runs until June. So anyone who's interested, and it is limited to Canadian poets or poets residing within the borders of Canada, are welcome to email me to just ask for more information about that.
Absolutely. I know a couple people I'll be flinging that to. Like, you should go take a look at this. It suits you.
Yeah.
Amazing. To speak of, again, the public part of this and also the intimidation part of this, I want to ask the 3 of you, because you have a lot of expertise on this, about the accessibility of poetry as a genre, as an art form. So I've heard plenty of people, even in the capacity of being in this job, be like, oh, I'm not smart enough for poetry. Can you take a look at this and tell me if it's good? Because I don't know. I don't have the brain for it. I didn't go to like whatever. And I just think that that's such a shame, because I am of the opinion that poetry can be, for absolutely everybody. So I would love to hear a little bit from all of you about sort of just your thoughts on that, and on the reputation poetry seems to have, and how we can open the door for a general audience to really enjoy it and derive something from it.
I think that's such a great question, because this is something I'm really passionate about as well. So I'm a poet, but I'm also a children's writer. And one of the things that always strikes me is poetry is the most accessible part of literature. It's the first literature we teach children. We're like, oh, you'll get this. It's poetry, right? So between like picture books and children's poetry, we feel like this is absolutely accessible. And then somehow along the way, we stop trusting ourselves. Poetry is meant, you don't need to be able to figure out every little aspect of a poem. Ideally, a poem will it'll give you the shivers. It'll make you feel, warm and cold at the same time. And if any poem is making you do that, you get poetry. So, what we want to see is we want to see new voices. We want to see people who are trying things out. We want to see play and fun in poetry, which is part of the reason why we did the Award of Awesomeness, is because we wanted like a low stakes thing. Sure, $2, try this out. Poetry is for everyone. It's about a feeling, and we all have those.
Yeah, I completely agree in terms of it as like an affective thing. Nancy, I'd love to hear your opinions on this as such a prolific poet.
Wow. I really I agree so hard with Sarah. Like, you have to think that when we're starting with our children, when we're reading to children, we're reading like Alligator Pie. If I don't get some, I think I'm going to die. And, yeah, but, and I think of nieces and nephews of mine who are, well into adulthood now, who grew up on that, but wouldn't think of reading a book of poetry, because somewhere along the teaching process of poetry, we left that connection and brought in things that I think the curriculum could be improved. And I think Sarah's other job does a lot of work toward that. But I think that I think there are gatekeepers. I think there is sometimes this idea that poetry is a vaunted place, and it's not, and it shouldn't be. It should be kind of a filthy, dirty, grubby place. That's what I think poetry should be. And I think that it should be common and cheap and just, all those kinds of words. Like, I don't think it should have, we should be trying to understand each other through, you have the opportunity in small things, small projects, small written things to communicate a lot of information. And I would say the other thing, I won't keep going on and on, that I really love about poetry is how slowly you can read it. And I think that's what really messes people up, right? Like, it's okay to take a long time to read a collection of poetry, to just read a poem that day and sit with it and chew it. You can go through the whole collection if you want as well, but I personally like to read really slowly and just read a poem at a time. And because poems are thick, you know, they're good
dense.
Yeah. And so you want to just sit with it for a while, and the ideas in that poem and the language in that poem. But yeah, I think we could work a lot to sort of deconstruct poetry as a special thing and make it not very special at all. And that would do a lot for poetry, you know?
Agreed. Manahel, do you have anything to add to this? I saw you unmute very pointedly.
No, I just muted because there was background noise here. But yeah, I think like Sarah and Nancy said it really well. I mean, I definitely came to poetry with like experiencing it while reading it, more so than trying to pick apart exactly what each line meant. And I think there's also something to with what you said about people talking about how they don't get poetry. I've heard that from people who have tried to write poetry themselves, and I think there is like this way that we're trying to measure up ourselves, and are just scared of not writing good poetry when it should be about writing the thing, and making it good comes later.
Trying something out. Yeah. Exactly.
I have 2 tips actually.
Please.
One is always keep a book of poem in your bathroom, because it's the best toilet reading, because it's the perfect time for one poem, and then you've done something and then you think about it for the rest of your day. It's the perfect bathroom reader. 2, write badly. Everybody writes badly, and it's the only way to write. So you write badly, and then you can make it better later. But if you don't write badly, you won't write at all. So give yourself permission to just like have fun and put it down, and you worry about smoothing it and polishing it later. Just get it down.
That's what editing's for, huh?
Yeah, that's what editing's for.
Yeah.
And editors.
Exactly.
For that matter.
And poets in residence. That's what they're for, right? Then you can bring them something instead of not having anything.
I see a comment from your friend Chris Johnson asking, I want to know what poetry collection Sarah has in her bathroom. Can you tell us? Can you tell us what poetry collection is currently in your bathroom?
Right now I have Ellen Bass. I have a couple of her books in my bathroom.
That was a fantastic call out.
Because they're so romantic, and I'm reading them in the bathroom. But they still work.
No, I'm loving all of this, and I'm loving especially these practical tips for being able to sort of like deconstruct this weird high ivory tower around poetry as a genre, as something inaccessible to just the lay person or just anybody. Nancy, I love the words you're using to describe it as like dirty and like common and like vulgar in the way of like vulgar Latin, and just like, you know, for literally everyone, doesn't matter. Let's just mess it up. It sounds like a world I want to live in, honestly.
Yes, absolutely.
So I've got one final question, which kind of tags onto this one. I've heard lots about here in terms of your passions for wanting to see what kind of poetry comes up in the world of new voices, of new styles, of trying to tear it apart and make something new out of the pieces. I'd love to hear a little bit about your wish lists, either for ARC specifically, like what do you want to see in your submission inboxes, and also just kind of your hopes for what you want to see emerging in publishing, more broadly, if you have any thoughts on that in terms of topic or a favorite style of yours, or just anything that you think we really should be pushing more of.
Well, I'll start then. I really am interested in new voices. That's something Sarah said earlier. And I think the thing is that we get into our communities and we're this really, wide country. So I'm interested in people that have ideas, as a prose editor, who have ideas about poetry that they want to think about or mull over critically, who want to look at a poem. A great way to start with us is a How Poems Work columns. So you can deeply dive into a poem. But if you have interviews, I love poetry interviews, and, just so that there's deep thinking about poetry inside the magazine, not just poems, but other people's ideas, because there's a lot of inspiration in that. And I want to see it be diverse. I'm glad we're doing these special issues. They're really important and we really believe in them as a board. But I also want to say that I would love that, and I'm fully committed to special issues, but I think that it would be nice that there was just generalized, and we are working toward that, but generalized deeper diversity all the time with, writers from different cultural backgrounds and queer writers and, different genders. And I just would like to see it be a thing that we don't think of as special anymore, but we still have to think of it as special now. But I see that in publishing too, like the complaints that we hear from writers with more privilege, white writers, let's just say it. And, freaking out about changes in publishing and these ideas that some people are being given opportunities that other people aren't. I hate that thinking, that scarcity thinking. It's such bullshit. And
more is more.
More is more. And I would like to see it not just be like something that happens this year, but or for the next 3 years, but something that and it won't transition until all levels of publishing change. But that's what I think we need to work toward and really agitate toward as people with privilege, as much or if not more than people without privilege or less privilege. So
I love that. Thank you. That was such a comprehensive answer. Manahil, Sarah, do you have anything to add to it right now?
The only thing I'd say is I would love to see in my inbox more poetry that plays with different languages. So if English is an additional language for you, I would love to see more of that. Don't feel like everything's got to be perfect. I think sometimes people who English is their additional language, they feel like intimidated to write poetry in English and in their languages that they're more comfortable with. But I'd love to see them all done together. It can just be gorgeous. So fill my inbox with that. I would love to see it.
As a linguist, that makes me so happy. Like just to watch all the languages like tumbling together and impacting each other. Yeah.
Get dirty. Mix up those languages.
Go ahead.
Well, yeah, like as a grad student right now, I feel like I'm seeing a lot of value in reviews. And if we're talking about kind of the longevity of poetry, and there is a sense that once like a book is out in the world, it only has a limited amount of time before it kind of gets pushed away. So I think reviews are that really like that starting ground for books to just stay around and for reviewers to talk about just that emotional impact and how and why that's so important.
And sometimes it takes time to mull over, like that's not within the 12-month like shelf life of a book. So absolutely, definitely. I've got one question from the audience as just a quick rapid fire before we wrap up. Are there any tips that any of you have about revisiting older work and editing it for a more current context?
That's a great question. I would say when you look at your older work, what are the lines that really spark? Okay, because those are what you want to build it around. You're just looking for any line that doesn't pay the rent anymore, that doesn't feel like it's you anymore. Yeah, you can't have any freeloaders in your poem. So just looking for what is really working and being brutal in your edits. That's what I like.
Amazing. This has been a fantastic 25 minutes. Thank you so much for spending some time with me and with our viewers. It's been a brilliant conversation. I really appreciate all of you and the work that you do.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you.
So thank you everyone for sitting and watching with us. ARC's newest issue, the Polymorphous Per issue, is now available. You can subscribe to the magazine at arcpoetry.ca to get a copy of your own. This has been today's Watts Weekly Feature. You can tune in tomorrow for a do-it-yourself chapbook making mini workshop from Nick Brewer from the League of Canadian Poets. And for discounts and deals, you can check out toronto.thewordonthestreet.ca/weekly-features. Thank you all so much, and happy Poetry Week.